Hello, Central Illinois. I'm Renee Haraney, your host of Peoria Professional. Each week, I introduce you to a local professional that you may or may not be familiar with, but they definitely have a story that you need to hear, because you don't know how you can impact someone else's life by connecting them. And this week, I want to welcome Kim Brooks Miller. And Kim, we are going to have like the most exciting conversation.
Yes,
and
we are.
I just want you to know that you may not be at a point where today you need to know about Kim's business possibly, but you know someone who does. So I want you to pay close attention and listen to this conversation, because this is revolutionary. This is really exciting. So Kim, welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on your show, Renee.
Oh,
Great
my
to be
pleasure.
here.
My pleasure. So Kim, your business is called YourStoryConfidential.
Correct.
Okay, tell us what that means.
Well, Your Story Confidential actually is a virtual online counseling center, and it's two-pronged. It's for people who would like to have counseling done online for privacy and also for time restraints. But also, secondly, it is providers, counselors, psychotherapists, life coaches that want to go online and have a virtual office and have clients that way too, along with their own practice.
Yeah, I love that idea. And so you just recently started this, correct?
Yes, I did. It's been a long time in the making, Renee, just because there's a lot of research involved. There was a lot involved with building the website, but also, too, doing a lot of background and searches on HIPAA compliance software in order to handle this type of counseling.
Sure.
So it did. We did a soft launch around November of 16, and, you know, it's been a work of progress ever since.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's so many things that we can talk about, but let's start with, who is this for? Because, you know, there's people who have already received counseling, some people who do it sporadically on like a need basis, and there's people who refuse to do it. Why might someone refuse to do it? And then, do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do, actually, and that's why the concept of this website was built. I think a lot of people refuse to do counseling because, first of all, they feel they don't have the time, you know, to go to an office, park the car, go in, wait, have the session, go back. But there's also, too, the people who have a lot of shame maybe involved with something. They don't want to talk with somebody face-to-face because they are too ashamed or embarrassed about it. But I think there's also the individual that they are concerned of their reputation, because let's face it, Renee, unfortunately, there still is a lot of stigma around getting counseling. They think, oh, you're weak. And for example, when I was still working in corporate years ago, there was an individual, CEO level, and his life was literally falling apart. And I said, you know, you really should talk to somebody. You really should get counseling. And he said to me, how? He said, I can't have even my car seen in a parking lot because people will talk, or the board will talk, or members are going to think I'm weak. There goes my job. And unfortunately, that does happen. So really, this was created for those people who could go online and they could get the private counseling, because we offer the virtual counseling in several different mediums. And this is all HIPAA compliant. So they can do live chat, email, messaging. They can do by phone, and we also have televideo, where you can actually, from your iPad or laptop, whatever, get that counseling from any place where you are. It could be your office, it could be from home, it could be even driving. And so if somebody wanted to do face-to-face, they could, but if not, they could just talk on the phone and get the counseling, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, but they can really be more or less anonymous if they wanted to, and I also think that's why a lot of people have never gotten counseling, because A, they think it's too expensive, or it's like, I don't want anybody to know I'm doing this, and I don't want to be sitting in a waiting room and somebody else walks in that I know.
Absolutely. Our world is changing so fast. I love that you are offering something that keeps up with that change, because we all are spending so much time on our phones.
Yes.
You know, and unfortunately less time with each other one-to-one. So I can see where especially the younger generation is really going to resonate with this.
Right.
You know.
Well, you know, when you think about the millennials, this is already how they communicate. And everything is by phone, including the streaming, the face-to-face. I just signed a contract for texting, so we will have HIPAA-compliant texting, too, very soon. And so, you know, a lot is for them. But, you know, you make a good point, Renee, because this type of virtual counseling is not to take away from the face-to-face. That is still vitally important.
Yes.
But this is for the virtual counselor who wants to gain additional clients or work with their current clients that may be on tight time restraints. You know, but it still is important. But this is in addition to.
Yeah. So are you saying that someone might have two different opportunities for counseling? Like they have someone that they meet with weekly or monthly, and then they can also reach out to someone else that's a part of your system. Is that what you're saying?
Actually, there are different ways of doing this. First of all, this was really built to be a platform for counselors. And so they could have an online office. You know, they don't have the overhead. They don't have, you know, administrative staff, that type of thing.
That's what keeps the cost down.
Right, exactly. But the other piece of it is, though, they may already have a practice and want to do a platform, but it can be very expensive. I've already built it. Go ahead and use mine, right? So, but the other thing is, though, is that I also do provide the advertising and the support where additional clients can come with them. So if you're a provider and you're watching this, you know, maybe you have your own practice, maybe you have a big practice, you can come online and have a virtual office on this and just have your people come on and, you know, it works out pretty slick. But also, too, if you are looking for any kind of help, because we do touch on different types of topics, you know, you can get additional clients, too, because your specialties are seen online.
Right.
And people can come to you. So it's a win-win situation, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like we've got to say this right now instead of waiting till the end. YourStoryConfidential.com.
Right.
That is where it all begins.
Right.
Right.
Right. And the reason I called it that is because everybody has a story. Right. You know, you have a story. I have a story. Those of you who are watching have a story. And what I mean by story is something that's happened to you, a situation. It could be a circumstance. Somebody in your life, relationships, that's really affecting you, but you don't want to talk about it. So, you know, now you can. And confidentially, privately, and it's very easy to use. Okay,
so I'm just going to be very open about my own life.
Absolutely.
Here, okay?
Spill.
So if you're a hater, go away. No, okay. Okay, so here's my situation, is when I was 17 years old, my mom noticed that I was depressed. And at 17, let's just face it, you know, whether there's an internet or not, that's a tough age.
Sure.
You know, we're really, our bodies are changing constantly, our minds are changing, our ideas of what is normal are changing, you know, and we don't open up to our girlfriends or, you know, close friends or whatever the case may be to the extent that we do when we become a little older and can decipher who we can trust. So at 17, my mom had me go see a counselor. When she brought it up, she said, I really think you need to go see a counselor. And my reaction was, so you think I'm crazy? Great.
Or you think I need help.
But that's not what 17-year-old Renee said.
Oh.
Do you know what I'm saying? And so like I immediately thought, oh, great. You know, I already have these thoughts I don't like and my mom thinks I'm crazy. You know, that is not at all what counseling is. But back in the 80s, you know, or 1980, whatever it was, when I was 17, you know, that's where my mind was going. And so I think there's some people that might still in the back of their mind kind of have that idea that there's something wrong with them.
Right.
But what I love about what you're doing, and especially it all starts with the name, Your Story Confidential. What you have done is set the precedent right away for this isn't about, you know, like necessarily mental illness, right? This is about the fact that we all have a story.
That's right.
And we need help processing this so that we realize our story is legit. It's ours. It's what makes us unique. It's what makes our journey what it is. And it actually leads to eventually how we can help other people.
Right.
Right? So we need help processing that. So whether we have the resources to do it face-to-face or if we're going to do it online, like what you're offering, brilliant, I think, you know, then it just helps us process our own story so that we can live the lives that we are intended
Correct.
to live, right? And be of service, just process it, because we all go through stuff. That's the whole point.
That's life. And I think a lot of society today paints the picture of you have to be happy all the time. Everything's cool. You're great. Well, guess what? Life is happening behind the scenes. And I know a lot of people, including myself at times, you hide behind a mask. And you really do need to talk with somebody. And that's why on the site we have regular counselors. We also have life coaches, because they have a lot to offer. And some people don't need an actual counselor. They need somebody of guidance, of like a coach, or to help them get through things. But a lot of the life coaches can offer a lot of things too, such as one of my providers, her name is Liz Pollock. She is certified in grief and loss, and particularly in pet grief and loss. And that's one of the things that she offers on here, online, on Your Story Confidential. And so they're really specifics, but the neat thing is that you can go online and you can see what these counselors offer, or providers, because it's life coaches and counselors, and see, okay, here's their specialty. And then you can e-message them and connect with them, or there's a calendar where you can go and schedule an appointment, because this is done by appointment. We want to be very sensitive to the person who is looking for help, that it works with their schedule, but also to make sure the provider is available.
Yes.
And your first session is free, because you need to see, are you comfortable with that whole concept with the provider? And the provider wants to make sure, can I really help you?
Exactly. Right.
Or do I need to refer you?
Yeah,
exactly. Money. So, I mean, this is a real legit thing, and people should feel very comfortable in doing this. I mean, everybody shops online, right?
Yeah.
Everything is moving towards line. So this is just the natural progression.
Right. I just love it. I
Thank
think
you.
It's brilliant.
I do too.
It's yeah, seriously. It's exactly what we need, because life seems to get more complicated by the day.
Yes. Especially today, because I
Yes.
think there are more things of anxiety, more things to have depression about, lots of pressures, everybody trying to juggle things in life. Your work-life balance, that's huge for people. People losing jobs, or having to retrain themselves for a new job, or relationships.
Oh,
the
my gosh.
strain of relationships,
Yes.
parent-child, husband-wife, girlfriend-boyfriend, significant other, no matter what. There's just, I think, a lot more stress today than there has been.
Absolutely. And when I think about my own life, I think, okay, I've been like the married mom who worked, and there were challenges with that. I've been the mom, just for a little bit of time, that stayed home with little kids. I've been the divorced mom.
Right, the single mom.
Yeah, and it's just, there aren't always easy ways to get situations resolved,
Right.
And I think that a lot of times, women especially, we rely on our family and girlfriends, like, oh, I just gotta, get this off my chest or whatever. But that is not always very productive, because they
Or
are
smart.
Yes, because they're not trained, they're not qualified, they're not objective. They feel a little defensive of us.
Sure.
Oftentimes. And so let's say there's a marital issue, well, guess what? That happens. No two people can be married without having some conflict.
Right.
And so what do our girlfriends do? Or our mother? They're going to like defend us. Well, he shouldn't say that, and he should take your feelings into consideration and everything. But the more self-centered we are about this,
Right.
then the worst things, can happen. And I know I had a girlfriend who, we were best friends when we were each going through difficult challenges in our marriages. And we would get together every couple of weeks, have these long lunches, and I think we just laid it all out on the table.
Sure.
Then it just recently occurred to me 15 years later, that was the worst thing we could have possibly done, was to, just put all these negative things. We weren't focusing on what our husbands were doing right. I'm really letting it out here today.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
No, but a lot of people can relate to that. So
yeah, you
absolutely.
don't want to do that. You want to, you don't want to like brush it under the table. You want to look at like, what is actually a legitimate concern? What can I do about this? What should I not do anything about maybe?
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
And I just felt like so my problem was I went to get help when it was already like overwhelming.
Sure.
Or when it was done. And then I needed help to recover, well, I just think that sometimes we need help just processing things.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean that everything is all falling apart.
Right.
Well, and
I think you make a good point, Renee. Because I think a lot of people, they talk to their friends, and that's okay. And you know what? It's great to have friends and great support. However, though, sometimes you need somebody, a third party, who can objectively look at things and also be non-judgmental and can help to move you forward. Because a lot of times when we get together with friends, we continue to bash, build up, share that common, misery or whatever, and you don't really move forward. And the problem is when it's a friend, when your relationship starts to go great again with whoever, then it's like, oh, you're still together, or you're still, and it causes just a lot of issues. And when they say don't air your dirty laundry, you have to be very careful, because people talk. I don't care who they are. People talk. And so that's why confidential is really big, and Your Story Confidential, because you can share things with this counselor privately.
Yes.
And again, from the comfort of your own home. If you're traveling, whatever, that's the beauty of this, that it works. And you know what? Vice versa, same for the counselor. They could be on a vacation and still be able to talk with the client and, reach them and have a lot of versatility and a better work balance of life too, in using virtual office such as Your Story Confidential.
Right. Wow. Okay. So many things going through my mind, but let's step back for just a second and tell me, how did you come up with this? Like, where did this come from?
A couple of different things. I remember a long time ago, there was a family friend, a very prominent family. The husband was abusive towards the wife, and he'd go out drinking the night before, and she'd get knocked around, and she'd have bruises. And she would call my mom and talk with her for help. And my mom finally said to her, and I was little, but you pick up on things when you're little. And I remember I would play around my mom when I knew she was having these conversations. And instead of dolls, I had Matchbox cars. I mean, it still is in my blood today, cars. And I remember my mom saying to her, you need to get help. And I remember this woman very specifically saying, I can't. We're members of this club. We go to this church. We have this company. People can't know this. And I remember as a little girl thinking, that is really sad. But then later on in life, I had an experience where I felt I couldn't go to counseling because of different relationships and who my parents were and things. And I think if I would have gotten counseling back then, Renee, I think my life would have been different. I mean, God has blessed me very much, don't get me wrong. And, it's because of His love that I am where I am today. And I'm very grateful for that. But I think some choices would have been very different. So, that's where I thought if I would have had somebody, confidentiality, to talk with somebody, and the privateness where I didn't have to go somewhere and be seen, and even by email where I could, and more people, interestingly enough, are more honest when they're anonymous by email or live chat, whatever, because they can let it all hang out because the other person doesn't know who they are.
Right. Well, it makes me flash back to all those times. I know this has happened with me. It happens with a lot of people. You get on an airplane and the stranger sitting next to you starts telling you their life story.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you allow it. And a lot of times I do and did. But it's that same kind of concept. He doesn't know you from Adam, will probably never see you again.
Right.
They let it all hang out. Well, it's the same kind of concept here. But when I was looking at this, because I had been in the health industry, remotely because of the Healthy Cells magazine and my radio show, Healthy You, that used to be on weekly. And I was on the peripheral of all this, and that's where I thought, what could I do that would really help people? And these things started kind of showing to me, and I felt it was a real calling to build this site and then be able to have it for people to get the help, but also for providers so that they could have a virtual office without all the costs to themselves.
Right.
They come on, have their office, voila, it works out really well.
Yeah. Yeah. I just love the concept of virtual work, as long as, it can be productive, but I'm just thinking about my own business now. But anyway.
Well, true. Yeah.
So that's really intriguing. What do you think are some of the types of issues that people are dealing with today that are really prevalent?
Well, I think a lot of the really hot ones are anxiety and depression. And I think it ties into just what's going on, not only in the world, but in the United States. But let's drill down more, central Illinois, with a lot of changes. I think not only that, but emotional eating disorders, which is one area that we cover on the site. We have a lady named Bonnie Harkin who is a specialist in that, because they're reacting to the stress or depression or whatever. Grief and loss. Another huge piece of people just not knowing how to handle this. And then another area that we handle that is the elephant in the room is post-abortion counseling.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And for people who are pro-choice, pro-life, it doesn't matter. This is after the fact, and there is a lot going on with people that are, and women. This is not just women, this is men too, but they just are having a lot of issues in life. And here is something else that's occurred where there's a lot of grief and shame attached to it. They never talk to anybody. It's been building up inside, and it's affecting their life, relationships, choices, lots of things. And they need to talk with somebody.
Definitely, I can see that. I imagine that when a woman makes that decision, that there's a lot of emotion that's going on, that there's they're not necessarily seeing things the way they would, 5 or 25 years later. You know?
Right.
And so they're looking at where am I right now and what are my resources, whether it be financial or emotional. Where am I in my life? And they make a decision based on that instead of what they might want to have decided years down the road. But we live with all those choices for the rest of our lives.
And that's a lot of choices, not just that one. And then you have consequences down the road, and you're like, oh, why did I do that? Well, it's too late. You can't go back. But deal with what you have right now and move forward, and that's what this is all about, not only the post-abortion piece, but also, too, all the areas of life.
Sure.
Where, okay, let's hit it head on. Let's talk about this. Let's get some things so we can get you happier in life, more satisfied, because that's huge. And speaking of that, I think a lot of times, too, there are a lot of insecurities. We have the media, especially for young girls, women, or even women our age, that you have to look perfect. You have to have this kind of body. Well, it's selling to all your insecurities, and if there's really something that's bugging you, work it out in your head. And work it out, using a counselor, because that really does help and point you in the right direction.
Yeah, you're so right. When I got my bachelor's, I studied advertising, was my major. And I just remember so clearly the professor saying, in advertising, we always try to highlight the person's fear.
Right.
Like, how sad is that, that we are trying to make people sad and fearful so that we can sell them something?
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, sex sells first. There's no doubt about it. Sex sells first. But the second is hit those insecurities. I mean, look at the beauty industry. Look at the weight loss industry. Where here... you have to be a certain shape and very thin, where in another part of the country, let's say Japan or India, if you're a whiter looking person, you're going to have the perfect life. So they sell lightening creams.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I mean, it's anything except who you truly are. And I think that's part of the problem. And I think so many of these ideas we've just been bombarded with, you start to doubt yourself. And how you look and how you are as a person, or even relationships, going back to, we need to be happy all the time. Well, there are times where you really have to go through grief. You have to understand it and understand yourself, and then start to move forward. And that's where getting counseling help, whether virtually or face-to-face, really is a must to help people to move forward in life and to be well-balanced.
Right. Oh,
yeah.
my gosh. We've been talking for 25 minutes, and it's gone by in a snap.
Yes, it has. But there's a lot to talk about here.
There sure is. I could talk to you all day about this. I think it's just fascinating what you're doing and what you're offering, and I know it's going to be a huge hit. Now, these life coaches and counselors, they're local?
Understand? Okay. Yes, they're in the state of Illinois, so they're licensed to be in the state of Illinois and have their services. And some of these virtual counselors will take health insurance. Others do not, but you pay by credit card or the paperwork. But the good thing is, though, since everything is HIPAA compliant, paperwork can be sent to you and whatever else. So if you're
Okay.
looking for a counselor that takes insurance, you can find them on there. You know, but if not, it still is going to be very cost effective, you know,
Right.
for the provider.
'Cause they don't have those overhead expenses.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh gosh, I just love the idea that you're going to be able to help so many people. You know, it'll be
That's the goal.
countless people that you'll never even know.
Right.
You know, that you'll be able to help with this, and I think it's fascinating. So I'd love for you to share, you know, with our listeners how they can get started, where they can find
Sure.
it.
Well, you need to go online to YourStoryConfidential.com. And you'll see a place, several things. There's also a blog that we have where you can read several helpful articles that are done by our providers. But also, too, if you go to the directory page and there's some clicks, you don't have to sign up yet. You can just see who our providers are, click on them. You can see what their specialties are. And there's a button that says e-message. And you just click them and say, I'd be interested in talking with you, and they will get back with you. So it's very easy. And like I said, the first session is free. And then after that, you can book a time that works for you and for your provider. And then if the provider's interested, they can go online too. And there's a tab just for them that, you know, talks about who we are, what we offer. And it can be your practice or a single provider. And, you know, you can get online that way. But I do background checks. You have to have your liability insurance. And you've got to be a for real person. So you got to first pass all that.
So these are not just volunteers.
No.
This is totally legit.
Yes.
You know, these people can help, or they'll tell you if they can't.
They're professionals.
Yes, they're professionals.
Right,
Okay.
absolutely.
And then you also have a presence on social media.
Yes.
So people can follow you there.
Right, on Facebook. And thank you for mentioning that, because we do have a page on Facebook, and we put articles on there occasionally, you know, other things like that. We're going to start some podcasts, and we'll do it with the providers so they can talk about their areas of expertise.
Love
and
it.
maybe answer some questions that people have that are watching, so that they will become more comfortable. But candidly, in a nutshell, my goal is really to help people. And this is to help the people that have fallen between the cracks all these years and have thought, I could never see a counselor. Well, now you can. I mean, you can if you want to do the televideo, you know, that's fine. All HIPAA compliant again and safe. But again, if you want to just, you know, do the email or text, whatever, you can do that too. So we're trying to meet the person where they are.
Perfect. Absolutely love it. Kim, thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure.
Thank you, Renee.
talking
This
to
has been
you.
fun too.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for watching.
PeoriaLife.com